we have a discussion with all our panelists, and I understand, I can't see, but I understand that we have all our speakers back with us now, and we have a few questions which have come in. And just to start the debate, I've rolled a few of them into one question for the panel, and we'll talk to and put them to our individual speakers. Given that government funds may well be in short supply following its largesse during the pandemic, with many industries looking for ongoing or increased support from the Treasury, could our panel put together a list of their priorities for funding UK agriculture? We have to be realistic about the amount of money that will be available, but it might help our government, and certainly DEFRA, to know what your priorities might be. And this is something we could put to back to Rebecca Powell. I want Kerry, and I'll do this as a sort of cast in order of speaking, really. Kerris, I wonder if I could put that question to you first. What would be your priorities for support from government in particular to help us with the challenges we face through climate change, because of climate change?
I would encourage government to think about agriculture in the round, as we have done with our net zero aspiration, thinking about the range of things that agriculture can do, not only for itself, but the economy. And perhaps following on from Ross's presentation, thinking about the range of services that agriculture can provide for society that brings multiple knock-on benefits, whether it's health and well-being, or whether it's positioning agriculture central to a new green economy.
So, Stephen Penfield, you were the next one up.
Well, I wouldn't like to second guess, and I'm a smallholder really, rather than a farmer myself, and I'll leave the calls on funding to farmers. But what I would say is that tariff-free access to the EU, it could be just as important as funding for agricultural produce. And if the government gets that wrong, there could be a big price to pay for certain sectors of UK agriculture. So I should say that could be a priority.
I think that's probably concentrating minds wonderfully at the moment, given the recent announcements about trade issues, and I think everybody, all farmers and everybody in the agricultural industry would share your views on that one. I must. So, Mark, priorities for support.
Yeah, I think one of the areas which we need sort of consistency from, and the research community could really help, is emission factors, whether it's in the field and how farmers can manage that, but also then some of the different, whether it's regenerative agriculture or the different types and systems, or conservation ag, are all being talked about. Where do they sit in terms of the benefits they bring, and bring sort of consistency along with that? So how do we measure and achieve organic matter gains, and how long can that go on for in a soil? How beneficial is grassland or forestry if you invest in it for 20 years? Does it, some of the real sort of big things that are ongoing that need really, I think, a level of academic research behind them to bring sort of a consistent and if you like, answers that can help farmers make better decisions.
And finally, Ross, we'll come back to you again. What would your priorities be?
You know, we're at the brink of something very big with this climate change, and the impacts are huge and enormous for us all. So it is incumbent on all of society for us not just to look at government to say, oh, it's them, they can fund the growers to do, or the farmers to do X, Y, and Z. We're all going to have to pay a higher price through taxes. I mean, I think you can pick on, you know, some other sectors. The insurance sector has a history of funding bits of research to look at the effects of trees in an urban environment. But actually, the flooding one for them is a big one. The energy sector could do a lot, but where did the money come from? Where does the money come from? I think the greater society needs to come together to fund some of these changes which are required to protect humanity in the future.
And still on the research theme here, questions coming from Matthew Gobbold. Has there been work looking at the emission level of different cultivation, drilling and soil management techniques? Are there benefits to conservation agriculture? Who'd like to come in on that one? Keris?
Could you run it again? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Sorry, we lost you there.
I can certainly say that when I was working at the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, lots of work going on there, looking at the different emissions under different cropping scenarios. Sometimes what you can do about that, I guess, is slightly more challenging, but there is work being undertaken in the UK, looking at different emissions by different habitat and cropping situations.
I know that so all the devolved administrations and DEFRA funded a large program of research earlier this decade to improve the agricultural greenhouse gas inventory. And I think, unfortunately, research into emissions from tillage was one of the things that was dropped. I think as with many things in agriculture, I think it's hugely complicated. That clearly, the less tillage you do, the less diesel that you might use. The less you disturb the soil, the less soil carbon you might lose. But there appear to be some trade-offs with nitrous oxide emissions. But this is probably something that does need a bit of clarification.
That's a good point. Mark, I don't think you heard, we had a slight glitch in the sound there. You might not, everybody may not have heard the question. And it was, has there been work looking at the emission levels of different cultivation, drilling and soil management techniques? And are there benefits to conservation agriculture? Just in case you didn't hear that.
Yeah, generally I think there's a bit of mixed responses, and I think that's what I was leading to, that there needs to be some sort of harmony around what that looks like. But certainly I think the one thing we know is that targeting a good soil structure by way of management of a soil leads you to less compaction, less by way of saturated soil, therefore more air and water, or less water field air pores, so you end up in a better place than a denitrifying, wet, waterlogged, compacted soil, which is not good for anything. So I think, yeah, there's I think just good soil management and focusing on soil structure brings you to a better position in terms of how you achieve that, and which one's better over a period of time, I guess, is where some level of consistency needs to come from research.
As Kerry said, and you emphasise as well, it is a hugely complicated equation, the energy input and the energy output involved. But to my mind, there has been work done in the past. It goes right back to the 70s, actually, when direct drilling first became fashionable in the mid to late 60s, and indeed the early 70s. It was described as what was one of the benefits of direct drilling, which was particularly fashionable at the time. But it is a very complicated energy balancing equation that needs to be done, and it needs to be done, I would suggest, at research level. Indeed, digging out some of the results from trials which obviously took place quite a few years ago now. There's no point in reinventing the wheel if you can find out some of the results that were about in those days, albeit that we know that the size of machinery and work rates have increased dramatically since the late 60s, early 70s to what they are today. There's a bit of an odd, no, not odd question, a bit of a peculiar question here. But I'll read it out. It comes from Jamie Day. I think I recognise that name. Will the shift to green fuel end UK fertiliser manufacturer? That's probably one for you, Mark. Well,
it shouldn't do, in the sense that, and I think there's only one really, but anyone manufacturing could buy green ammonia. If that was the sort of main part of the question there, you know, anyone, if you like, green ammonia will be something that I guess becomes a commodity that people can buy, just like manufacturers today buy ammonia to produce fertilizer. So if you bought green ammonia, then you can go down the route of green fertilizer in that sense. So I don't think it would be restrictive. It just depends on the appetite for a company or a manufacturer to go down that route.
Super. Now I'm going to, there aren't any other, have you got another one? No. No, we haven't. So I'm going to draw this to a close now, and say, really goes without saying, our thanks to all of our speakers, and cast in order of appearance is DEFRA Minister Rebecca Powell, the NFU's Keris Jones, John Innes Senator Stephen Penfield, Yara's Mark Tucker, and NIA EMR's Ross Newham. I hope you agree we've had a very interesting and a stimulating conference today. And we will take the questions and some of the comments back to DEFRA, as I said, right at the outside, and hopefully that will also help to get some response back from government, because it's in everybody's interest to work together on the climate change issue, to come up with some solutions so that the UK can retain, and key to it will be retaining, a profitable UK farming industry. So thanks again to our speakers today for all their efforts. Thanks for putting up with the gremlins which emanated from this room. I think we've killed off most of them now. And thanks also to our online audience, wherever you might be, and rest assured, whatever the forecast for agriculture, BCPC and indeed the Farmers Club will continue to bring you the latest information based on science, not bias, to help you make the most of the challenging and rapidly changing times, for whichever side of the farm gate you are.